Alan Tardy,
Yes.
welcome to my podcast. Thank you for accepting the invitation. It's very nice to have you here.
Well, thank you for
And
inviting me, Milton. I really appreciate it.
sure, and the reason that we end up talking is that you are one of the authors on that book about running across America, called
Very,
Across
very
America
humbled
on
by this group.
Foot. Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's been more fun than I was expecting. I was really not thinking too much of it, before, but now I'm having a kick out of it. It's been really interesting.
I've been working with Jim McCord since about August of 2018 because I was one of the first ones to respond to his thoughts about this. Whoever put it, I forget who put it out there, but I've been mainly working with Jim, and it's been a long journey. And
Yeah.
I know he was trying to get the book out by July of last year, but I think it took until really about now to put it together the way it should have been. So it's been a long but fun journey. I've not really met more than one or two other people in my life that have run across the country, and all of a sudden I'm on, Zoom chats with 7-8 people at a time and talking about a book that 27 of us have written, and it's been inspiring, humbling, just a great time.
Where are you located?
I'm in Western Massachusetts. I live in Holyoke, Massachusetts. I was born and raised about 10 minutes north of here in Northampton, Massachusetts, which is where I finished my run across the country.
Mm-hmm. That is west of Springfield, right?
Just north of Springfield, about 15 miles north of Springfield.
All right. So it's a beautiful area. I used to live in Massachusetts for a while.
Wow.
And some 9 years there.
Oh, really? What part?
But I started in Weymouth, Quincy, Weymouth, Malden, just around downtown, right?
All right.
Then I moved to New Hampshire. I lived in Brookline, New Hampshire.
Yep.
Which is just west of Nashua. Then I moved to Salem, New Hampshire.
Wow.
And then later I moved to Newton, Massachusetts. And
You're on the east side.
Yeah, and then much later, like my last 6 months in New England, I was in Rhode Island, in Providence.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I spent a little bit of time there.
I have been in this area all my life. I'm 65 now as of last December. And there's been a few times that I've tried to or thought about moving out. And it's about those times you start running into so many friends, lifelong friends, and it changes your mind. You're like, I could never duplicate this anyplace else. At least that's what's been in my heart. So those times I wanted to escape were the times that those people were somehow put back into my life, and it just couldn't move away. And I've had my own house painting business now for about 35 years. And, in recent years, if I had thoughts of moving out of the area, I could not want to go someplace and start all over again. My business is quite established, fortunately and thankfully. Just didn't want to start over, and I don't want to stop working. I'm one of those crazy people of my generation that wanted to retire at 40, but once we get to 40, now we're saying we don't want to retire. So that's my mindset.
Yeah, it's interesting. I spent some 9-10 years over there, and it was quite pleasant. I recently went to Massachusetts for a couple of days for a quick visit, and I was driving around and looking at it, and I was feeling, wow, I have so many good memories from here.
Yeah.
And there is no bad blood. I didn't leave any really bad incident behind. Even my divorce was not that difficult, and and I don't have. Sometimes you leave an area where you spent a good part of your life, and there is some major shit that you left behind, and then you don't feel like going.
Yeah.
But with New England, I feel pretty happy. I enjoy visiting now, especially downtown Boston, which I never lived in downtown, but I always visit there, and I went to enjoy the city. The closest that I lived was in Newton. Newton was a really short drive.
Really?
But it was always fun.
Boston offers such an array of different things to do. It's
such a well-developed part of the world, and it's clean, it's organized, quite safe.
And despite the fact it's a big city, the people are very friendly there.
It is friendly. Even the traffic is relatively easy to drive. Of course, over there they complain about the traffic, but when you drive in other areas, you realize that yes, it is a little different.
Oh yes.
I like to criticize that everyone says that the traffic in their city is the worst, but and of course we say the same here in Miami.
Yep.
But recently I had to go for 3 days in Austin. And I was driving there and thinking, wow, it's a little better. It's a little better than Miami, yeah. If I felt that the traffic was flowing better, and also people were less distracted. So there was, the drivers were actually driving, which is something surprising to me because I'm not used to it.
I think our worst time for driving in New England is during the foliage season when people come from everywhere. So, New England drivers, I won't say anything about them, but we bring a lot of you foreigners up here from other states and stopping at every moment to peek at the colors of the trees, and it's like, oh my God.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. I did that a lot too. Like my first years in New England, I couldn't wait for October to just go to New Hampshire and Vermont and drive around.
You were probably one of the ones that got in my way.
Yeah, I was probably, and thinking, what the fuck is this guy honking for? Fuck you.
The only problem with the people that have lived in New England all their life, they know along with the beauty of the fall after that comes the snow of the winter. Yeah. And you ran away from it. You're down in Miami. I'm still in it right now.
I was okay with snow. I like it. I'm not going to say that I like the entire time. Maybe around February I'm getting a little tired of it.
Yep.
But just like around August, I'm getting a little tired of the heat here, because the heat makes you be indoors all day. You end up being an indoor person a lot. At least that's what happens to me. So during summer, I only go out at night, pretty much.
Well, you're going to laugh at me. When I was training to run across the country, now I ran in 1978, but I had never been off the East Coast in my life. Uh-huh. And I was very naive, even at 23 years old and 21 and 22, going, well, how do I train for a desert? So not knowing, I wore the old heavy cotton sweats training all summer. Uh-huh. And I think it acclimated my body to heat. Now I'm the crazy guy that when they give heat warnings, don't go out of your door. When it hits 100, I have to go out. It's in my head. Uh-huh. When it's really hot, my body just loves it. So kind of the opposite. The warmer it gets, the more I want to be outside.
Yeah, I even chose to do my 2 runs across America during winter. I did it, through the entire winter, so to be in the cold, and because I think for me it's easier to manage being cold than to manage being hot and sweaty and stinky. I think I will be more uncomfortable if I am sweaty and dirty. So it was easier. I just thought it was a lot easier.
I guess I didn't really worry too much about that back
Yeah.
then. Plus, I'm a house painter by trade, and I love being outside. I love being on ladders, and
Uh-huh.
I have a painting crew, and I'm the guy that wants to paint in the sunshine, which they love because they can go in the shade, and
Uh-huh.
I don't complain about it. So it just the funniest part of the whole journey is that when I ran across the country after training in those heavy sweats all summer, I started at the end of May. So I'm going through the deserts of Nevada when it's like May and early June, when it's like 75, 80 degrees and dry. It felt like fall in New England out there at that point in time.
Uh-huh.
The only place it really came in handy is once I got over the Rocky Mountains and into like Nebraska and Iowa. That's when summer hit. And part of my chapter says it got into the 90s and as humid as it could get without actually raining.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's where my training came in much more handy than the desert that I had trained for, I thought. So
Yeah, and it's very flat and not a lot of trees. You know,
a lot of cows.
It is a kind of desert, right?
Yes.
Yeah, if you want a shade, you have to hide under a cow.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And back in the 70s, I mean, we were that very unique item out there. At one point, I said the cows were looking at me and wondering what that crazy human was out there doing. Of course, I was carrying a knapsack at the time and everything, so I really looked like the oddball, the real oddball in the mid and late 70s.
Yeah, that we have some weird stories. And I did the last podcast I did before yours was with Noah and Robert Barnes.
Oh wow!
But before them, it was with Nick Ashio.
Yep.
And his story is so weird because of being hit by a car.
Yeah.
It's so incredible. Like just listening to him, I was a little bit in shock. But there is no, among all of us, among the 27, there is no normal one. You know, there is nobody did it just as, oh yeah, I went there and I ran and then I went home. You know, like there is no such a thing. Everybody is weird, and that makes it so interesting.
I think it's that renegade / rogue spirit that's deep inside of us, and where it comes out of us is in doing what we've done. You know, we found that outlet to unleash some of that and still be considered okay. Kind of.
You know, I didn't read the book yet, on purpose. I'm waiting for the paper version. Yep. You know, so I have in my computer the entire thing, but I thought, no, I'll wait until I have the physical book, right? But now, because of all these events of these days, my book didn't arrive yet. So really? I'm waiting for it. Yeah.
Well, if I could slip mine, my first ones came in just yesterday or the day before. If I could slip it through the computer, I would give you one.
Yeah.
It is it's very, through the whole journey. After I ran across the country, I mean, that was the end of my dream of that nature. You know, I just kept I've been running all my life. I never thought about anything else to do with it. So suddenly, 40-something years later, to see your name in print in a book on something that you kind of closed the door on 40 years ago, it's been it's an eerie, exciting, weird thing all at the same time. Because again, I don't think any one of us, except for maybe raising funds for charity and talking to all the people I've seen, I've not read all the chapters yet, but nobody did it for fame and glory. They did it as part of a dream that was in their head, and if they could help by raising money or awareness for something, they did that. But nobody did it for the fame and glory. Nobody did it for big contracts. We just did it because it was in our heart to do it.
Yeah, ultra runners don't have groupies.
No, because they can't keep up. I can remember back in high school, and I graduated high school in 1972, so I was there in the late 60s and early 70s. the weird things as athletics in the high school back then were, I tell people, if you played golf, ran cross country, or played tennis, you were the weird guys. They were the ones nobody even knew where our cross country course was. The whole school had to figure out where we ran. And nowadays, if you don't do at least 2 out of 3 of those well, now you're the weird guy. You got to be able to play tennis.
At least in Massachusetts, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You guys like cross country and skiing and and some weird things like that.
Back then it was just cross country team. We would get our letters at the end of the high school year as a senior. You would get letters for being in a sport, and people go, cross country. What is that? So everybody running long track team. Everybody knew about it. Football, baseball, lacrosse. Everybody knew about it. Soccer. Everybody knew about it. It's like, what the heck is cross country?
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
When I was in school, I was not athletic at all. Well, I wasn't athletic at all until I decided to do this run. I was a couch potato.
Really?
But in school, I remember hating to run. Hating it. I had bad memory. Well, I had a lot of bad memories from school, but I definitely had some bad memories from being in sport events or like there is always a week of the year that they do a lot of sports and it's like a festival, and I would hate that because I would be the slowest boy, they would put us in a track and go ahead and run and I would be the last one and people would be laughing at me, and I hated playing soccer so much that I decided to join instead, because I had to choose one sport. I joined the judo team.
So you didn't have to run.
So I didn't need to run. So I would prefer to get my ass kicked every day than to run.
Oh my
God.
God.
Then on top of that, some days to warm up, they made us run.
Oh no.
That was terrible.
And you kept saying, I want to tell them I didn't join this to do this, but you didn't want to get your butt kicked by the sensei.
It was either judo or basketball, which has a lot of running in it.
Yep.
Or soccer. Which was a lot of running. So I literally chose the sport that had the least amount of running. And that was judo. And I was this small kid, and I was I wasn't fat at that time, but I was not athletic at all, and I was short, and I would get my ass kicked because there is always some little horrible Nazi bully that likes to kick your ass, and he cannot wait to throw you he cannot wait to hit you with the world. And I would get plumbed, and of course I hated that. But when I look at the alternatives, basketball or soccer, I'm going right back to judo. So I did that like for 4 years.
Really?
4 years of judo. I didn't become even good at that. 4 years of judo, and I was still a white belt. 4 years, I was still white belt. That tells how good I was at that.
Oh God, that is hilarious. It totally shows that it was your excuse. It was your out.
My performance was horrible. I did it just enough so they wouldn't kick me out. So I guess I was very useful for sparring.
It's like a human punching bag rather than one hanging out of the ceiling.
Pretty much, but not a lot of running. And then, okay, I have another example that shows you how much I didn't like running. For 4.5 years, I lived in Newton, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Right. Commonwealth Avenue was a block and a half from my house. Okay.
Yeah.
Commonwealth Avenue is the route of the Boston Marathon.
Yep.
So for 4 years, they would close our street almost in front of my house. That was the corner that they would close because they would close the access to Commonwealth.
Yep.
And then there would be all this crowd that would gather there to watch it. And I was on the beginning of how they call that, Disappointment Hill.
Heartbreak Hill.
Yeah, Heartbreak Hill. I was almost in the beginning of it. So that is the most popular point. Right?
Yeah.
That people would go because that's where you see a lot of people give up, and it was a painful part. And I live a block and a half from there, and I never saw it.
Really?
I never. Every time there was the Boston Marathon, I would get in the car and drive somewhere. And I would go to New Hampshire. Oh, now it's the time to go see the mountains. Or I'll get on my motorcycle and go travel. But I didn't want to even stay around. I thought it was such a nonsense. Like, people running for... And they pay for it? They pay to do it? To me, it was the stupidest thing ever. I thought, this doesn't make any sense. Right?
Oh, man.
And yeah, that's how much I didn't like it.
For me, I hated long distance running. Although I talk about this cross country team, back in high school and beginning of college, I was a sprinter and a jumper. Those were my fields. I was great in the short distance, and I had legs like springs. And so through high school, I would stay in cross country again just to stay in shape for winter track. So then we go indoors. I can do my sprinting and jumping. And I went to UMass, University of Massachusetts in Amherst. And as a freshman, I was approaching senior records in what we call the triple jump, which was a very new event back then. Again, hated long distance running, just did not like it. And I was working almost full time. I had an overload of classes, and I was on the track team. And again, excelling in the triple jump, and the coach was all excited. And I wasn't feeling well at one point, and like really not feeling well. So I went to the infirmary at the college, and they said, well, no wonder you're not feeling well. You have this severe case of mono. And they said, you can't run track. You should cut back on your classes. And so I go down to the coach's office for the track team, and I go in his office. I won't say his name. He's very well known. But I sat down and I said, Coach, they're telling me I can't participate in track anymore. I have mono. And he instantly gets very somber. And he goes, get in my car. Okay. He brings me back to the infirmary to get tests done again so that it's confirmed he would not accept the fact I couldn't be on the track team because of where I was excelling without their confirmation. So, at that point, I couldn't do track. I couldn't do what I love, the sprints and stuff. And also,
what is mono?
It wipes you out. It physically drains you of all energy. It's mononucleosis. It's devastating if you get a severe case of it. I mean, you wake up and all day you're ready to sleep like all day, and it's not a good thing. And I'm not sure what it actually does chemically to your body, but it wiped me out. And also at the same time, I was still towards the end of the Vietnam era when I was in college, and I had many friends that were studying for college one day and off to Vietnam the next. And so it was very hard in my mind at that point, because I was trying to be a phys ed major. I couldn't participate in phys ed anything at that point. And I guess not being able to do any of that, I gave up, on college. I quit college with about 2 full years in, and went to work and just started jogging at that point for no real reason. It wasn't a couch to 5K. It wasn't anything. I had been running all my life. And when I couldn't run long distance or couldn't really run, and then quit college and was living back with my parents, I just took up jogging as a hobby. And jogging turned into 10 miles a day. And once I recuperated, and 15 miles a day and 20 miles a day. And it was at that point that I realized I just wanted to do something with what I had, because I live on the western Massachusetts area, and back in the 70s, the athletic, as you saw, the Boston Marathon, the athletic atmosphere was not as great in Western Mass as in Eastern Mass. You know, when you were beyond college, there was no like, over 30 basketball leagues back then. There was nothing promoting, continuing to participate in athletics as you grew older. So this
There were
jogging
bowling leagues.
or bowling, yeah, that's a sport. Say that gently.
The only sport that you can practice while you drink beer.
Oh. Well, that's nothing wrong with that either. Remember, that was coming out of high school and college. I was well in shape for that.
Yeah.
But that was
So,
kind of my introduction. And finally, at some point, I was working with no real direction in life and running 25 miles a day. And that's, I just turned and said, I'm going to run across the country. Had no background in it. Nobody was really doing it back then that you knew of. There was no when I went to I can remember going to the local runners club, runners store, a wonderful little store, local thing. And I walked in and I asked the owner, Fred Pilon, at the time. I said, Fred, I'm going to run across the country. And I said, is there any information you can give me? He goes, no. I've never done it. I don't know anybody else that's ever done it. I can help you with your shoes.
it's interesting that before the popularization of the internet, it didn't matter how many people did it, you would probably never know about them.
Exactly.
And in fact, now that people like John Wallace and others have been trying to collect the history of these people, and they keep finding names, they keep finding more people that did it decades ago, or in recent years, that they were not on social media, they were not promoting it in any way.
Yep.
So we keep finding more and more people.
It's interesting. I'm very excited. At some point in the next couple of weeks, this whole pandemic thing that's going on, somebody has some information that they really would love me to see, but the aunt that holds the information right now is a bit elderly, and so we don't want to take any chances, at all. But I ran into I'm on a parade and race committee in the Holyoke, Mass area. It's like the third best St. Patty's road race in the country and the second or third largest parade. But in helping at the parade, I got to talk to one of the local PD members, and it turned out his wife's great-great-grandfather ran across the United States either in, I thought she said 1903, but it's looking more like 1916. I don't know his name. I've probably been told it, but I don't remember. And this woman's aunt has his diary, which includes a photo album from 1916 or 1903, whichever it might have been. He had every police chief in every town that he stopped in write in the book to authenticate the fact that he'd been through this. He talked about us being a renegade spirit. He was doing things back then like climbing the sides of buildings like we've seen in the last 30 years, people crazy enough to do that. But I will see his diary and his photo album and all the newspaper articles within as soon as we can get together. And so I want to feed that to John.
That on itself is a book right there.
Yeah.
That is material for a book.
The things I thought about, I mean, when you and I have done it, I mean, the roads were paved. Obviously shoes got better since 1978 when I did it, more research in that, but I just wonder what he used and for shoes and what the roads were like, or like these people that ran in 1928 and 29, there was races across the United States. It's like, what were the roads like? What were their shoes like? there were no Keds high tops back then or whatever they were.
Yeah, the roads were like local roads, local farm roads, right? A lot of them were not even paved.
Yep.
So it would be like today running from farm to farm. So it varies a lot. The shoes were not worse though.
Really?
Because when you look at what is a minimalist shoe today, and what is the kind of thing that we use on racing, those shoes are actually very simple. When you get today a super ultralight racer, it's not very different than what would be a leather racing shoe from 1930. It's very close to that.
Never
And
thought of
those
that.
shoes are excellent. So
Yep.
so I would say the shoes are not that different, but the supply lines are very different. Can you imagine every restaurant that you find along the way is a local restaurant.
Yep.
It's mom and pop, country store, local food.
Yep.
So I would suggest that the quality of the food was better, probably. So he probably ate better food. He had shoes that were just as good. The roads were fine because the traffic was slow. What I think was worse, surprisingly, was air quality.
Really?
Because the cars were using gasoline with lead. Remember, that was
Yep.
really bad.
Yep.
Really bad. And if you are on the side of the road, breathing in that kind of stuff, not good at all.
Well, there's still lead in the gasoline when I ran across the country. I can remember that, but never thought of it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking how many cars a guy would have seen running across Nevada or whatever his route was. Just
If it was 1916, even going across Massachusetts, the number of cars would be very small.
yeah.
So most of the time he was really going from farm to farm, and
Yep.
it was quite interesting. Remember, that's before 1916. That's before First World War. We were not an industrial country yet. We were really a farming country.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah.
It was also not a super established country in terms of rule of law. A lot of the laws that we take for granted today, they were not written yet
Oh no.
by then.
Not at
So
all.
the rules were simpler, and they were more incomplete.
Yep.
So it was. I don't think it was much more dangerous though, because it was more empty. Because and that's the reason that the countryside is so safe. One of the many reasons
Yep.
is that it's so empty. Which is surprising. When you look at all the crime and the danger and all the complications that you have to deal with today, it's mostly in the city,
And
especially on the edges of the cities.
oh yeah.
With the complicated parts are downtown or the very edges of it.
Oh yeah.
The suburbs are fine. All the suburbs are excellent, and when you are actually out of the city, then it's excellent again. It's just the outskirts
Yep.
that
It's a little dicey.
or downtown.
Now
But
when you
downtown is easy to avoid.
Yeah. Now, when you ran, like for myself, and I mentioned in the book, I don't think there was one day that somebody did not at least, I mean, again, back in the mid late 70s, we were the oddballs. And I'm out there with 30 pounds on my back running through the desert. And and then up through the mountains. And I don't think there was one day that somebody did not stop. Many times, multiple people just to make sure I was okay. It was a definite different atmosphere, like you're saying.
That didn't change because now when I was going through the desert, and everybody that I talk to report exactly the same thing. When you are in the desert, everybody presumes that you're in an emergency. Because it's not normal that a person will be walking along the road in the desert, so everybody stops to ask,
Yep.
What's going on, and they offer you water, they offer you food, or they definitely offer you a ride. So the desert makes it easier. You are more isolated when you go east of the Mississippi, and you are almost always in urban areas. You're either leaving an urban area or you're entering the next one.
Yep.
So people don't stop. They don't notice you. But when you go, I would say, west of Austin, all the way to California, it's like every day you're making friends. Every day people are stopping to ask how you are doing. I wrote on my book about a funny statistics that west of Austin, 5 times people offer me guns.
Really?
Yeah, and one time people offer me ammunition.
Really?
Yeah, it's very funny. And once east of the Mississippi, it happened once that I was going through Alabama, and some couple stopped their pickup truck, and because they saw me on the road the day before, but like 30 miles away. And then they saw me again. They asked, "Are you traveling? Are you traveling on foot?" And I said, "Oh, I'm doing this thing that I'm running across America and all that." And they found that fascinating. They gave me money, and they offered me, "Hey, there is a barbecue place right here. We are going to have to eat.
Really?
Why don't you join us? And you can." So I did, and then at the end they said, "Look, you need something to protect yourself," and they were not talking about condoms. You need some protection, and they said, we'll give you a gun. I said, "No, don't worry, I'm all set." And no, really,
it's funny
we'll
because
give you.
I grew up in the '60s, and my run was in '78, but it was still somewhat of the feel of the '60s that still were transitioned into the '70s, and so the running part, I think we were just considered still the free spirits back then, and so people were just trying to, stop on occasion to make sure we're okay. The one place I got a little nervous is my hair was very long at that point in time, and as I came out of the Rocky Mountains into Nebraska, the sign entering Nebraska said, "Welcome to Nebraska," but it had bullet holes everywhere. So I took my hair.
Now the signs have bullet holes everywhere.
Well, at that point, I took all my hair and I tucked it up underneath the hat that I've been wearing, like a baseball cap, just in case. But the only problem with that is that hair had been covering the back of my neck. And all of a sudden, I'm running in Nebraska where it's like 95 degrees and blazing sunshine. And by the end of that day, I thought I had 3rd-degree burns on the back of my neck. It was a safe move, but a bad move overall, I think, physically.
I took photos of every sign, saying like, "Welcome to the state of whatever," right? Every sign, I took photos. And I also took photos of every sign saying private property, no trespassing, and things like that.
Yep.
I don't remember a single one that was not riddled with bullet holes.
Really?
No. Oh yeah. It's because I went along the south. Remember, right?
Oh.
So I went through desert and through redneck areas. So every sign has bullet holes. Most stop signs, the speed signs on the road.
Really?
Most of them have at least one hole.
Well, I have pistols at my house just because they're fun, shall we say? But Wow, that would have been wow. That would have made me think a whole lot more.
It's quite funny. And considering a sign may be there for decades, right? So it doesn't mean that people are shooting it every day. It means that someone is shooting it every decade,
Wow.
But still, they accumulate holes.
What's
I saw, especially I remember a sign saying that this is government property. You have to stay out, and and they had all the number of the legislation and all that, and said no
really?
trespassers and you could barely read it.
Really?
So many holes it had, because I guess people would see that government, all right, boom,
We will give them our opinion right now.
yeah, here's my vote.
Wow. Wow.
Very interesting.
Fortunately, when I got like in California and then Carson City, Nevada, I was staying with people every night. 'Cause the National Council of Corvette Clubs, which is this huge volunteer organization across the country, they organized it for me because they were also the ones that were raising money themselves for the charity that I ran for, Spina Bifida Association of America. But it was so thrown together back in the 70s that nobody knew what was going on. So I had help from Corvette people through California and into the last city in Nevada on the western side. But then I was totally on my own until I got to Denver area. Then from there on in, I was with people almost every night. People would come and pick me up at the end of the day. But also, you're talking about taking photos. I kind of chuckle at that because my photos, I had the little disposable cameras with like 16 pictures in each one. I forget what millimeter they were, and so I'd have to take pictures with one of these, and then eventually send it home, and then buy a new one and take pictures. And there used to be a company, I don't even know if it's around anymore, called Photomat, which after I got back, you would drop your pictures off at this photo booth, and they would develop them over a couple days and pick them up. They lost half my photos. And it was the day and age they weren't able to track them down. I got a lot of them, but they lost half my photos. So, and now now everybody takes them from their phone. I've got probably 2,000 photos on my phone.
When I did it the first time, I had an iPhone 4S, and the second time I had an iPhone 6. So the camera was very good.
Wow.
And
now what
I think I took total maybe 100 pictures.
Really?
I don't photograph a lot. When I see something really beautiful, I tend to just stay there and look at it. Wow. And sometimes it doesn't occur to me to take a photo. Other times I think of it, but I think, when I get tired of looking at it, then I'll take a photo. So to me, the photo is always second to
the memory,
to experiencing. Yeah, in part because I grew up without cameras, and I'm not that old. Cameras existed then, but I just was not used to taking photos. I remember my mother gave me, when I was very young, my mother gave me an Olympus camera, but getting a film was expensive, developing was expensive.
Yep.
I sucked at taking photographs, and that didn't work well. So I don't know, it was never a super important part of my life and the way I experience things. And then now I think people take too many photos. So sometimes I like to travel by motorcycle a lot. And usually I bring a girl with me, and I tell them, I always say, look, I know you are going to want to take a lot of photographs, and here's the deal. If you want me to take a photo of you, I'll do it. Once a day. Yep. One photo a day, I'll help you. And, oh my God, I want more photos. I said, yeah, you do it yourself. And also, and I explained, and no selfie sticks. There is no way you're going to travel with me with a fucking selfie stick.
Oh no, I'm the
No
same
way.
way. I'm very
No
much
way.
that same
I
way.
said, use your eyes, use your fucking eyes, look around. You're going to discover the world is actually nice to look at. It's
Actually,
very nice.
that's part of what I put in my chapter is, especially if you're doing something like we did, it's like you may never come this way again. You have to experience it in your own mind. You have to create your own memories. You have to.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw again. I had never been off the East Coast, so to see, I still have with me. I could show you. I have a pine cone that's this large. I had never seen large pine cones in my life. The biggest things in our area might be 4 to 6 inches long, and all of a sudden I've got this foot-long pine cone, and
Wow. Where did you find that?
up around the Lake Tahoe area in
Wow.
California. And I said, I still have it. 40 years later, I sent it home. I still have it now, and it's like wow,
Impressive.
But
So you said you ride too. What do you ride?
what's that? Sorry.
When I mentioned that I ride motorcycles, you said you do it too.
Oh yeah, I have a Harley. I have an '05 Softail, and gonna make.
Where have you been with that?
You got a Beamer?
No, where have you been
Oh,
with that?
no place real long distance. I only got the bike about a year or so ago. I had
Uh,
motorcycles back when I was in my teens and early 20s. Then I
uh-huh.
gave them up, and all of a sudden, all my buddies in their 50s started getting them, and I'm thinking, they just experienced midlife crisis. And all of a sudden, they all had them.
Uh-huh.
So I decided it was time to join in. You know what I like the best about them? A lot of folks don't like this part, but I like when they have like fundraising rides. Like we have one at a soldier's home, literally around the corner from my house. And there's a soldier's home up there. The money that's raised for it all goes to the soldiers' home programs and stuff. And they will have 1,000 motorcycles show up on one day a year and ride. And the towns, cities, they close their roads for it. And so for me, I love camaraderie. And I think the motorcycle people have kind of brought a different aspect of that into my life, and it's a lot of times a different type of crowd too. Most of them, you would say, probably don't run 30, 40
Yeah.
a week.
A lot of them are heavier than the motorcycle. And
So
yeah.
what do you have?
I have two Valkyries.
Really?
I have one here in Miami and one in Europe.
Really?
Yeah. And it's a big bike. They're about the same model, and they're the same year, same model. But the one in Miami doesn't have those big hard saddlebags on the sides.
Yep.
The one in Europe does, because the one in Europe I use more for touring,
Yep.
while the one here is more to just go around town and I enjoy when I go somewhere to see friends, I ride.
Yep.
But I didn't do any long distance travel with it. But that will change because this summer I want to do a trip across America.
Wow.
With that motorcycle. So I'm going to I'll put some saddlebags and the highway pegs and all that, so it will be quite comfortable.
You and I are very much alike in that realm because mine, I went out and got just a couple of leather saddlebags to add to it. That was just to carry some things.
Mm-hmm.
But I added those later just for convenience. I'm more the not stripped down version, but I'm more the just go out and enjoy the road kind of person. But I'm probably going to get a second one. I get used motorcycles, so if I get a second one that has all those saddlebags, because some of my friends do take some of those long journeys that you're talking about and go to big events, and mine traveling that length that they do probably wouldn't be good. So even though it's a Harley, even though it's 1,000 cc or plus whatever, I got to get something a little bit more long road worthy.
Yeah, you need at least two positions to have your feet on.
Yep.
So you can keep changing.
Yep.
Moving your legs. It the position for your arms has to really make sense.
Yep.
So you have your hands forward and wide.
Yep.
So to be comfortable. And the seat has to be good. So on my bikes, I replace the seats with better ones. And the one that I have here in Miami has air suspension, which
really?
is very good. I like it. I like it so much. I'll probably buy another set to bring it to Europe and install on my other bike.
Oh wow!
Because the other bike, sometimes if I hit potholes and with a passenger,
yep,
sometimes I hit bottom.
Oh,
and because the suspension on the Valkyrie is a little bit undersized, slightly undersized, and it's a suspension that makes sense if you're riding alone and you don't have any luggage.
Yep.
But if your bike is riding heavy, and that one in Europe, I ride it like loaded with luggage and the camping gear and the passenger. I make sure the passenger is always very light, but yeah, I have limits too. but it hits bottom sometimes. So I'll replace the suspension, but it's an incredibly comfortable bike also because it doesn't vibrate.
Yeah.
It is a 6-cylinder engine and it's opposing 6.
Oh wow.
So the bike, you can get a coin, and you can get a nickel.
Yeah.
And put the nickel standing on top of the engine, turn it on and accelerate, and the nickel will just rotate. It will not fall to the side.
Really?
It just rotates. Yeah, it's amazing. People post videos of that when they get their Valkyries, or they show that to their friends. Give me a nickel, and they put it there on top of the engine.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
That's how smooth it is.
Holy cow.
Yeah. It's amazing.
That doesn't happen on the bike I got right now. So I may have to
and
change.
also the rear tire is a 180.
Oh, really?
And on the European one, I replaced that with a 205 car tire.
Really?
And I'll do the same with the one here. Oh, it's perfect. It's wider, gives you better acceleration. It's smooth, and when you are, especially when you are in a place that is dicey, like you have water and stuff like that. I feel safe on that. Yeah. I use a sport tire for all weather. And also it lasts 50,000 miles. So
yeah, that's true. That's a lot.
Car tires are great. And that never have a flat.
Never thought of a car tire on a motorcycle.
In a heavy, they call it going dark side. If the bike is heavy, it works really well.
Wow.
So if you have like a heavy Harley, I don't know, because Harleys have relatively narrow tires.
Yes.
So mine is a 180, so the tire is already quite wide.
Okay.
And so it was easy to it's not easy to install. It's a bitch actually, but because you need to remove everything to be able to put a tire so big in that space.
Oh.
And it's going to be like 2 millimeters from the sides, on the suspension.
Yeah.
It almost touches it.
And you don't have any trouble.
But yeah, when you look at it from behind, it looks like a Mad Max bike. It's incredible.
You don't have any trouble with it moving and hitting the tires at all?
No, it's perfect.
Really?
And I ride through the mountains. I do all the curves and went through the Alps like 12 times already. And not a problem. You can ride scraping the pegs on the sides, and the bike performs really well because it's heavy. because the bike is so heavy, it flexes the tire. So you have the tire gets properly squished, just like the motorcycle tire did.
Okay.
And so, but in a I would say in a bike that was significantly lighter, I don't know if it will work out at all, because you need the bike to be heavy. Because then you will really, especially when you are in the curves.
Yeah.
It does push the tire down. It flexes it.
Okay.
So it conforms to the road very well. So yeah, it feels amazing. It's weird though, because you feel the road a lot more. So any imperfection in the road, you feel. It's like driving a car that is a sports car with sport tires and sport suspension. You're going to feel any pebble that is in the road, right?
I know that too.
And it's the same when you're riding a Valkyrie with the motorcycle tire. It's more comfortable in that sense, because with the car tire you're going to feel every little detail. Well,
I still have a Corvette with the wide tires and exactly what you're saying. You can, because they're made for that. They're made to feel everything, so you can work with them. So
exactly. So exactly it gives you a little bit of a sporty feeling in that sense. But it's a wide bike. It's super wide. Her name is La Gorda.
Really?
Do you know Spanish?
No.
La Gorda means the fat lady.
Really?
Yeah, fat lady.
Well named, my friend.
Yeah, because she's really wide, and without the luggage and all that, it looks like I'm riding an RV. It's
funny because really one of my friends, who is not a very large person, but he went totally whole hog into the motorcycle from nothing almost, and he bought, I won't say what model, but this big huge bike, and I'm 5'9", I'm like 165. He's not much bigger than I for poundage or height, and he was complaining last year because it was hard for him, especially at a standstill, to handle. I said, well, how much does this thing weigh? He goes, about 900 pounds. I said, and then you put your girlfriend on it, so now you got over half a ton that you're trying to support, and you're wondering why you're having trouble at 5'9", 160 pounds, handling a bike that literally is 6 times your weight,
Yeah. My Valkyrie in Europe is with accessories and everything, it's about 900 pounds. And I carry around 100 pounds of luggage.
Wow.
Plus I am 200. So now it's 1,200. And the girlfriend is rarely more than 100. So let's say 1,300. It's still 1,300 pounds for a motorcycle.
It's over half a ton.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, that makes a really comfortable ride, though. Because it's a Cadillac. It's like a big Harley has that effect, or a big BMW.
Yep.
It's the same. It's super comfortable. I tried recently. A friend of mine, he has a dual sport, one of these GS motorcycles. So we were riding around town, and we decided to switch bikes to see how it is. He didn't like my bike too much because he doesn't like heavy, low bikes.
Oh, really?
But I like his bike. Of course, it feels weird in the beginning, but I can see why he likes it. Like the engineering of it, you can tell that the responses are super sharp, and you feel that this thing is not going to slip up in any way. And even though his bike was about 30 to 40% lighter than my bike, and he had the big model, the big GS.
Oh, really?
And it was a lot lighter than my bike, but it felt very secure.
Did you feel like the center of gravity was higher than in your bike?
Super high. Oh, no, super high. My motorcycle, I don't think you can find any bike with lower CG than my bike.
Wow.
Because the engine is wide and low.
Yep.
You know, and now that frame and now that structure is so high. You know, you really feel that you are riding in a magic carpet. But the GS it was very high, but you can feel that there is some engineering behind it that made it work so well.
Yep.
So I don't consider it completely out of the realm of possibility that one day I'm going to have dual sport. It's not yet though, but and I would like a bike that is hybrid. I am absolutely convinced that having a bike that is not electric is not attractive to me. But
right.
I don't think that electric bikes make too much sense for riding long distance.
Oh, I agree.
Because of all the charging and all that. Bikes are the kind of vehicle that makes the most sense to be hybrid.
Yep.
That's the most sense. And I think that the proper way to do it would be to get a bike that is a dual sport but change the motor to a motor of a bike of same brand, but lesser motor. So let's say you get a GS that is designed to be like a 1200, right? Then you get the motor of the 600,
all right,
and adapt to put it there. So now it is underpowered, and then you add a hybrid system that replaces the alternator, and you need to change the pulley system and all that. It is engineering. It's not. I'm not going to say that it's easy, but then you put a small battery bank, and you put a strong motor that is going to be like, let's say, an extra 20 HP. That motor will be like 25 pounds or so.
Wow.
And now you have a hybrid bike.
Yeah.
That is going to perform really well and spend less fuel.
Yep.
You can go many miles on battery alone. But then when the battery is depleting, then all right, it's gasoline now. You know, so
wow.
So actually the gasoline engine would never be not working. It would just be working really easy because the electric motor is helping so much. And when you accelerate, it accelerates really, really hard because the electric motor can help a lot.
This could be one of your next ventures, my friend.
Yeah, I have a project now that's my new adventure is that I'm building boats and after I'm done building boats, I think I may decide to build my next motorcycle.
Really?
Because nobody seems to be interested in building hybrid motorcycles.
Yeah, they're so focused on the cars.
Yeah, some companies are doing electric bikes, and they are gorgeous, but they are not practical to travel.
No, not at all.
Like
not at all.
You cannot. We go to. Yeah, right. If you are traveling through Germany, yes, you're going to find high-speed chargers every now and then.
Oh, really?
It's okay. But I don't travel just in Germany. I travel through Eastern Europe. I travel to the Balkans. I travel to places where even electric vehicles are not that common. And I don't want to be interfering so much with the travel plans to have to plan for charging.
Yep.
And so motorcycles require an energy density that makes pure electric, in my opinion, impractical.
Yeah. And
electric bikes are perfect for city use, though.
Oh, absolutely.
For city, yes.
That's about as far as you can go with them right now.
Yeah, but for long distance cruising, of course, what I'm saying now may be incorrect in another few years, but people will be watching this in the future, and they will be screaming at the computer, "You fucking idiot!" But today, 2020, it's not good yet.
No, but I think you're going to see the wave going your way, because there's probably people like yourself that are already thinking in this mode. It just hasn't come out. I mean, they're already thinking, expanding on the electric car thing, but eventually there's so many motorcyclists in this country right now, not counting around the world, that eventually somebody's got to grab a hold of that idea like you are.
Yeah, a mid-size, like a Suzuki 600, something like that.
Yeah.
Dual sport.
Yeah.
With a hybrid system, that would be my next bike. No, that definitely. Then
I can see in your eyes it might be your next bike.
Yeah, and it may not exist, and then I decide to make one. Because now I know how to deal with electrification of, I can convert a car or a boat or anything. So it doesn't scare me so much I would just need to improve my welding skills, because I do welding today.
Really?
But it looks like shit. Yeah, I have to grind the hell out of it to make it look decent.
Well, don't give me a welder. Who knows what I'll somehow weld together.
Yeah, I have been doing a lot of welding, and now I'm building some stuff for the boat that is taking a lot of welding. And Jesus Christ, I hope nobody looks at it. It's ugly.
I promise I won't.
Yeah. So if I decide to do something that requires so much welding, like modifying a motorcycle, then yes, I'll have to spend a few days just learning,
Oh my goodness,
to a better level.
Oh. Wow. See, people are afraid. If people see me walking down the street with any kind of tools that are not a paintbrush, even a hammer and a saw, they lock the doors, hide the kids in the closet, and put the animals in the cellar. Don't let them come here. Mechanical tools, just forget it.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of mechanic friends, but I understand them. I like what you're saying. I totally understand what you're saying. But for me to use my own hands to do that, it's like all knowledge goes out the window, including that has to go down to my hands to do something. So
I have such a admiration and for craftsmanship, of any kind. Like sometime not too long ago, I had to repaint part of the house, the interior. So and it ended up nice. I did a good job.
Yep.
But Jesus Christ, I know how hard it was to do it. Like how much attention I had to pay to do, and how the first try didn't go very well, and I realized, this looks like crap. And then I had to figure out why, and why my choices were not that good. So I learned, and it became good.
Yep.
But I appreciate the craftsmanship behind
I have to tell you,
and earlier. Yes.
Like for me, I think the painting industry that I'm in, the house, and it's mainly residential, some commercial, is that between that and the running has been great, because you can't put a ladder up high enough that I will not go up. I love the heights. I love being outdoors, and I think because of my profession, it's kept me in my mind knowing I have to stay physically fit enough to do it, which is where the running hobby has been able to continue in. But I love getting out there and working alongside other people. And I think I love the residential field better because I watch people, because their house looks one way when we start and the way they've been picturing it for years by the time we finish. And I've actually seen people cry out of happiness when they come home, because I have a big crew, so we can turn a house around in a day. And to watch them drive into their house, which looks totally different than when they left to go to work, I've literally seen people cry. Not a lot, because we just fulfilled what was probably one of their biggest dreams for their house in years. So, but being outdoors is what I love. Climbing the ladders, I love it. I'm not as good on roofs. I don't run up and down the roofs like I used to, but I still get up there. I leave that for the young bucks.
Yeah,
They're out to prove themselves.
Yes, I like craftsmanship. I sometimes when I see someone doing, and it's not that common. Look at people doing carpentry. Most of the time, they're just doing it. It's just automaticity, and I don't care for that.
Right.
But sometimes you see one that he's really looking at the material, he's feeling it, he's being careful with his measurements, and you see that everything that he's doing is not in a hurry, and he's not stopping until it's perfect.
Yep.
And then he's really looking at that and installing, and that is a tremendous pride in it. I like to watch that. To me, it's like watching
Your cabinet
TV.
makers.
You know?
I have two friends that are cabinet
Yeah.
makers.
Yeah,
Oh
and
my God.
in the boat building
Oh, that's right.
world, a lot of people are masters. They're master craftsmen.
Really?
Yeah, because a boat is very unforgiving. If you're not doing it really well, it's not going to be good at all. There is not a lot. There are two kinds of boats apparently. There are excellent boats, and there are boats that you cannot even put on the water. You know, not a lot in between. You know, because it's so unforgiving.
Yep.
You know, a boat, if it's not built kind of perfectly, you cannot.
And the punishment
like,
for building it wrong, it sinks, and you go down with it.
It's going to be full of ocean.
Yep.
that's the problem.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's still that is a possibility of making a boat that doesn't last or that doesn't perform well and still looks all right. But for the well-trained eye, you can tell just by looking at a boat. You can tell what kind of boat it is by the curves, by the proportions, by the way things were installed in it.
Wow.
You can already tell. This is not going to be good. You know, or this is just good for a weekend, you know, for some coastal. But if I am looking at a boat that was designed and built for ocean passage,
Yep.
I can tell. Like just by looking at it, I can tell that, oh yeah, someone put the time to do this really right.
To kind of go in your realm, about 3 years ago, I was invited to go see a speaker at a local college in my area, and I'm hoping I'm getting the name right. But I think it was Tori McClellan. And in your realm, the name of her book was "I Had to Row Across the Ocean." She had a boat that was large enough to exist on, but small enough to actually row all across the ocean. And the first time she attempted it, she started, I want to say, in the North Shore near Boston. Don't quote me on that. And was rowing to France.
Yeah.
And she got south of, I believe it was south of England. Don't quote me on that. When there's like a hurricane or something coming through, and she did have one of those beams in the boat where when you hit it, the whole world starts looking for you or whatever it is. And she actually got to the point that she had to use it. And the captain of the freighter that actually came to her rescue said, "If you weren't a woman, I would not have come." This is in her book. Because he said so many guys, so many men attempt stupid things like this. And so she didn't make it. And this is back during the Muhammad Ali, like when he was in his prime. And she ended up working somehow in Muhammad Ali's training camp. And she's not type A, she's type triple A personality. A wonderful, beautiful lady. Got to meet her. At one point, she was working with Muhammad Ali, and he turned to her and said, "Tori, do you want to be known as the woman that almost rowed across the ocean?" And it set her on a new course. And do not quote me, but I believe she started in Africa and rowed to Central America, South or Central America.
Yeah,
and
I know some of the stories because one person that I know from Brazil is the only Amir Klink. He's the only person that rowed alone from Africa to Brazil.
Really?
So he's the only one that did the South Atlantic. Several people did the North Atlantic.
Yep.
And also several people did all oceans, but not alone.
Yep.
But he did it alone.
Yep.
In the 80s. And as far as I know, nobody did that after him. Not alone. So they did it in pairs or in teams or several boats. All that happened.
You should check on it because Tori was alone, but I don't know when she did it. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think she did North Atlantic.
Oh, that's true.
No.
That's
true.
That's
you're in a different current system.
Let me ask you this about your friend, and I'll tell you about Tori. Do they think what we did is a little crazy? Running across the country? Because Tori thinks what I did was crazy. And Tori, the worst that happened to me, I could trip and fall and skin my knee. You trip and fall out, you can get eaten. Yeah.
The difference to me, the biggest difference are two. One is that you can make a plan that is a little bit half-assed and start running across America and adjust the plan as you go.
That's true.
Like I started and I changed the way that I was dealing with the flat tires, and I changed my camping gear along the way. I changed the kind of shoes that I was using. So you can improvise a lot more. Rowing across the ocean, you have to get the training the method, the systems kind of right from the beginning. So you can do some trial runs, you can do some shakedown runs, but when you start, you have to start for real and knowing that you will not be able to change equipment. So for instance, with Amir, he had a lot of troubles because he forgot to bring a cushion. He didn't think of having a cushion for the seat.
Oh my God.
Because all his training and all the stuff he did without cushion, he was a very experienced rower. Yeah. But he realized that during the ocean thing, it would have been better. And so he didn't have a little cushion from the seat, so he had a lot of blisters.
Oh my.
On his ass. So
wow.
You can imagine. So one difference is this. Doing a rowing across the ocean will take not just better planning, but a more complete planning.
Complete planning, yes, absolutely.
The other difference is that doing what we did, again, if you fall and you skin your knee, or even if you have a bigger injury, you can just stop for a few days in whatever city you are and wait. And when you are good again, you continue.
Yep.
You don't have that privilege in the ocean.
No.
So the ocean will require not just better planning, but it will require better training, and you need to be more sure that you will be able to do it physically.
Oh yeah.
And even though it's a very demanding activity. So in my opinion, doing what we do can be a little more organic and a little more improvised.
Yes.
A little more free as well. And the stakes are not that high. There's
people around us every day.
Exactly. And doing the ocean thing is more similar to going to the moon.
Yeah.
All the preparation has to happen before launch.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Once you launch, you're on your own.
Yeah. Especially if you're declaring that you're doing it solo. So you can't do it solo if people stop in and help you all along the way. So, like you're saying, they have to have it all together by the time they get going.
Yeah, it has to be perfect, and the tolerance for errors is very small.
Yes.
In rowing. I know I cannot remember the name, but I know the story of this woman that she was rowing from New York to France. She wanted to get to her little village where she grew up in France.
Really?
And she did the entire thing. And when she was about 10 miles to the shore, there was a storm. And then the storm pushed her back some 20 miles. So the next day she rowed again. but it's difficult to approach. The coast is always a little complicated, and she had to wait for the right time. But then it got too late in the day, so she had to wait for the next day. But then the next day she was like 20 miles away because the current kept pushing her away.
Oh my God.
She kept trying to arrive for a week.
Oh God.
And then she gave up.
She gave up. Wow.
She couldn't do it. The emotional stress was too much. So what she had to do is she had to redefine finishing 10 miles away.
Yeah.
And which kind of sucks.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Yes, it's the last 1 mile can be really, really complicated. Watch the movie the Kon-Tiki if you have a chance. And they went from Peru to Easter Island on a boat made out
Kon-Tiki.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
A boat made out of logs and ropes and straw.
I do remember that book.
Exactly. And I would say the last half a mile was 90% of all the danger.
Oh yeah.
Was the last half a mile. It's incredibly difficult to approach coasts. And in fact, I have a lot of experience sailing, and when you are sailing, you feel a little bit uncomfortable with being close to shore.
Oh really?
Yeah, because there is always a certain danger. Like if you are more than 1 day away from shore, then it feels very comfortable because no matter what happens, even if you oversleep, you're not going to hit shore.
Right.
And so you just need to correct. So that is a psychological, slightly irrational fear of hitting shore.
Wow.
Like, for instance, I know stories of sailors that they were trying to go to find a certain island to check their navigational skills, so they would turn off the GPS and do only celestial navigation and see if they can find a small island in the ocean.
Wow.
But then as they start to get close, they start to get really stressed because they want to find the island, they don't want to crash on it.
Yeah, there's a big difference in there.
It starts to have that risk that you find the island by crashing on it, and so it's stressful.
Yeah.
A few people did it. I think that the ocean rowing thing is one of the most unforgiving kinds of expeditions. There was recently a podcast on Joe Rogan with this guy that he walked across Antarctica.
Really?
And I think that was also incredibly well planned, and it's not easy. It's, I would say, much more difficult than what we did. I think the distance is a little shorter.
Yeah.
But when we did it, 3,000 miles or so, we didn't have to do it at minus 20 to minus 70 degrees.
No.
Pulling a sled.
Yes. And did he set up? He must have set up a tent every night, and so you have to deal with the tent and the weather and. Yeah.
The equipment is so highly technical, and the calculation of food. Also, we could buy food along the way. He couldn't. He had to carry all the food.
That's true.
He had to develop, a company help him develop a nutrition system that could give him, 10,000 calories a day or something like that.
Wow.
So basically his food was half butter.
Wow.
Something like that, or 1/3 butter. It was incredible how many calories he had to take, and they figured out a way to make it in such a way that wouldn't petrify with the cold. No, they wouldn't become. That's right. They wouldn't freeze up.
Yep.
So they made it in such a way that it was still like a little jelly, a little soft, so he could chew on it.
Oh.
There are stories of people that tried to go through Antarctica or the Arctic, and they broke their teeth trying to eat trying to chew on food.
Yeah, you and I didn't have to
But
deal
you
with
can't.
that.
Yeah, we didn't have to deal with that. And also, it is a little scary, those things in which everything, every resource and every solution has to be perfectly planned from the moment, because once you launch,
Yeah, it's your life.
there is nothing.
It's your life.
There is nothing. One thing that I like to do, it is in my plans, is I want to sail the Northern Passage. So you go with your boat west of Greenland, then you go north of Canada, and you come out on the other side in Alaska.
Wow.
But even that, there are a few villages that you can stop along the way and resupply. And even if in the unlikely event that you get stuck in the ice, you are on a boat with 1 year worth of food, and you have communications and internet, and
Yep.
in worst case scenario, you press a button and search and rescue
They come
will
and get
come.
you.
Yeah, they will not be happy, but to do it. And in fact, the Canadian Coast Guard forces you to have not just have a good plan, but they check your boat. They make sure that you have really good equipment. They make sure that you have, that you are capable of staying alone in the ice for extended periods, because they may not be able to reach you for weeks.
Wow.
Even with modern equipment. And they require you that you have a tracker so they can see exactly where you are real time.
So it's all really for your safety more than their inspection.
Yeah, and it is really necessary, and also they try to make sure that you're doing that early enough in the season, so you don't get stuck towards the end of the season when the ice closes again.
How far a distance is that?
It's a lot. It's like even if you do it in at perfect time, it's going to be 2 to 3 months.
Really?
Yeah, it's because it's not a straight line. It's tortuous and it's slow, careful navigation. Because even though the ice is open, it opens during summer, but you need to be watching for icebergs. You need to be watching for low depth. It's very technical. It's not an easy sailing.
No.
By any means, and definitely you should not do something like that alone. You need a good crew that they can handle not just the complications of that sailing, but that they can handle the isolation. And a lot of people cannot handle that very well. And we see that now with people just having to stay at home.
Oh, yeah.
For a few weeks, a lot of people are getting off the rails already, and because
I'm fortunate that my profession is allowed to still go to work.
Mm-hmm.
The construction fields, at least, I think each state has its own guidelines. Yeah. Construction workers are still allowed to go to work, because I am one of those people that I'd be bouncing off the walls if you left me in my house for 3 days. So
yeah, I am the opposite. I can stay for long periods. In fact, like if it was to go to Antarctica and spend months there, I know I could handle it, because I work from home. I'm good with isolation, and I'm good with planning. I'm good with planning what to do during that time.
Yep.
At least I can keep myself occupied, and I can handle easier to be alone than to be in a group where I don't think the group fits really perfectly. It's very easy to multiply the stress.
Oh, sure.
Especially on a boat where you are in a small space. Yeah,
that's why.
With everybody.
There's all sorts of things out there for people that are like couples that are suddenly with each other continuously 24/7, and how to handle that.
You're going to see there will be a record number of divorces this summer.
Yep.
Record. And we know that from the boating world. a lot of couples buy sailboats and they decide, okay, let's go sail in the Caribbean, let's go travel the world.
Yep.
And that lasts one season or half a season and they divorce.
Really?
Yeah, it's very common. Because they didn't calculate that person that they love, that they need to spend 3 or 4 hours a day, the moment they have to spend 18 waking hours a day with that person, solving problems every day and maintenance and occasional discomfort, they didn't calculate that it will change the dynamic of that relationship.
That's why you and I won't have to worry about it after this one, because neither one of us is married again.
That helps, but also I think that once you are very experienced and you do some crazy stuff like running across America or sailing long distance, doing stuff like that, by the time that you need to choose the crew for an adventure, you will know how to choose them.
Oh yeah.
You will know how to judge their talents and their capacity very well. So, those stereotypes of captains choosing just the pretty girls to travel with them into the Caribbean and all that.
Yeah.
Only a rookie captain would do that. Because an experienced captain knows that is going to be a source of troubles, a source of stress. So he's going to, of course, beauty and sexiness are welcome, but first you are going to filter by personality, by talent, by the capacity to be self-entertaining and self-reliant. You're going to filter by all those qualities first.
Oh, got it.
And then if after all that you can still choose someone that is good to look at, then yes, of course you'll do it. But you'll definitely not choose by that first.
No, you have to be able to choose people who can help you complete your mission first, and then move to the second level.
Yeah, it really helps if you don't feel like murdering them through the middle of the trip.
Yep.
I spent a little bit of time with another runner that she was running around the same time that I was, but she was going in different directions. So I was going west, she was going east. And she's young. She's must be 20, and she must be around 30 now. And we were considering doing, when I was deciding to do my second run, she was considering doing it again. She was missing being on the road.
Was it Zoe Romano? Does that hit a bell?
No. And it's better that I don't say who that is because of what I'm going to tell.
Because she did run across the country, a friend. So. Yeah,
she did it, and then she ran in Europe actually.
Oh, okay. Different person.
Yeah, she did the how is it called? The Tour de France.
Okay.
But running.
Wow.
Which was a brilliant idea. I thought, wow, that was incredibly badass. But this girl, we were considering doing that run together, but we are not relations. She's not my girlfriend or anything like that. So I said, look, we need to do a test. We need to see if we can get along. So we went to the Appalachian Trail together for a week, but we chose a cold and rainy week. That was going to be very cold and rainy.
So you were together.
Very tough. Yeah, because we need to go through challenges, right?
Yep.
And we chose a route that was an unusual route that would force us to go over mountains and cross rivers. So we would have to ford rivers
as a team
and go to parks and cities and all that. It was really tough. And the thing lasted like a week.
Really?
And at the end, because that was going to be a test to measure if we could handle that together. And the test was incredibly successful because it proved that we could not.
Yep.
It proved that we had very different tolerances to perceived risk, that we handle discomfort very differently. So we knew after that test, even though it was, I'll consider it was an interesting experience.
Yep.
But we knew that we could not be
no long-term
doing
coming.
this for 3 months across the country.
No.
So I recommend to people, do a test like that. Do a test in which you know that you are going to be uncomfortable, because that's why we'll test you. You cannot, if you're training for marathon and you are doing 5K runs, you cannot do 5Ks when you are rested, because you're training for the first 5K.
Oh yeah.
You need to get exhausted first doing something else, and then you go run a 5K, because now you're training the last 5K.
And actually, for me, it goes going along with what you're saying. I've been a solo runner. In my head, it's all solo running. Whether it's my training, again, the race that I put on in my own, or help put on in my own city, we attract like 7,000 runners, and I still run the race. But you'll find me in a little pocket all by myself. Running is a huge part of my life, but I love to do it alone because I do a lot of thinking. Somebody else being in my life doing that, maybe something else in life, I could handle it. But in the running, as much as people want to run with me or people want to get together and run, I'm just not a group runner. It's just never been me.
I have a friend that we are considering doing El Camino de Santiago, which I did alone, half of it. And I would like to do that. I did the first half, and I would like to do the first half again.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not very interested in the second half, but the first half I really would like to do. And I would like to start a little deeper into France, like 1 or 2 days before Saint-Jean, which is on the border.
Okay.
And then, because then this way I would be going through the mountains, through the entire mountain range, and then all the way to Pamplona and Burgos.
Oh.
It's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous trail.
Really?
So we are talking and we are coming up with the rules for that. And one of the rules is that I want to do that during winter, because I don't want to, I want it to be difficult. Yep. Because otherwise El Camino de Santiago is too easy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's too easy for us. I mean, because you can do it. Remember, there are hostels and villages every 12 miles or so.
Really?
And even through the mountains, it's not like terribly difficult. So I want to do it with minimal backpack, or if it's not during winter, I would like to do it without any luggage.
Oh, wow.
Just having a vest, carrying your toothbrush, your phone, the charger, and an extra pair of underwear. That's it.
Wow.
And then having to, in every town, having to do laundry and clean stuff, and and having to depend on what I find along the way, which I think is a very interesting and beautiful way to do it. Or if it is during winter, with a minimal backpack, because you don't need to do any camping on El Camino.
Oh, all right.
There are too many hostels along the way, and they are for free.
Oh, wow.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to this girl. We are considering doing it, but I said, look, one of the rules that we should practice is that we don't talk during the walk, and ideally we don't even do it together. Let's one go first and the other go a few minutes later.
Yep.
And so we meet again on the next village. We meet again on the next hostel, on the next restaurant.
Your own individual experiences.
You can be with your own thoughts.
Yep.
And in fact, I don't like to talk to anybody. When I went the first time, I was trying to be a little more social and talk to everyone, and that was frustrating, because I like a line from George Carlin. He said, "Imagine for a moment how dumb the average person is." And I remember that half of the population is dumber than that.
Oh my goodness.
And if most people are pretty dumb and uninteresting, why? And I'm not saying that they are not kind, friendly, honest, hardworking, but they are dumb, right? So when they go to El Camino, do you think they get any smarter? No, it's still the same dumb people. So the conversations are terrible.
Oh.
And in fact, most of the talk was about Brexit, because it was a brand new thing at that time, and the World Cup.
Really?
And that blew my mind. I thought you are doing a 3,000-year-old trail with enormous religious and historical significance.
And you're talking about the World Cup.
And you want to talk about the World Cup? You know, like I had to tell people, come on, there is so much more. You can
You're being surrounded
your life.
by, you're being surrounded by it once. Just one time in your life, you're being surrounded by it.
Yeah, and it's one of the most interesting countrysides in the world.
Oh my God!
It's wine country. It's Spain. You're going through medieval villages. Your trails go through farms where you can pick grapes and apples and and pears out of the trees and eat them right out of the vine.
And you're going to talk about the World Cup.
And then surrounded by all that beauty, all that magnificence, you want to talk about Brexit? So I prefer, if when I go again, it will happen one day, with her or alone, I don't mind. I want to just be quiet.
Yeah.
And I have a card that I carry on my wallet, and I use some days. That card says, "I am silent today." That doesn't mean that you cannot talk to me. I'll just do my best effort to not use any words.
Wow.
Consider that as an exercise. I hope you cooperate. And then some days I go around with that card in my pocket, and I show it to everyone, and then I don't talk to anybody. It's incredible what happens to your mind when you spend a day or two without using words. All that conversation, all that background talk within your own brain starts to quiet down by the end of the day. And you know it because you have been alone on the road, and having to not talk to anybody.
Oh, God, yeah.
And you see how your thought process starts to change.
That's part of my chapter. Talks about why you're training to learn to be alone, to learn to be by yourself.
Exactly.
And just enjoy yourself.
Yeah, it's fabulous. And also another thing that is amazing experience is having to talk, to communicate to other people, but then without using any words.
Yep.
So people will ask you questions, and you have to think for a moment. And then you use just one gesture to answer that.
Yep.
Or you may end up not being able to answer, and then you have to say something. It's okay. It's an exercise. It's not like, you're not going to get punished by breaking your silence.
Right.
But you are trying to preserve it. So someone asks you, a question, where you are going, you have to have a way to say. You see how it becomes more. It becomes a completely explanation.
There's some people I talk to that I wish they would do that.
Yeah, it becomes a complete explanation that you can do with two gestures. Or when people ask you, so why are you doing it? And you go like, so people that are just listening to it are not understanding anything that I'm saying. So I'm just trying to answer with gestures.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm saying, maybe I'm sad, or maybe I'm going somewhere, but I don't know where, or people. They may ask very practical questions, and you may not be able to answer.
Yes.
And in some cases, you are just going. You showed the card they're going to simplify their questions a lot if they need to ask you anything. I actually met a girl she's from Texas, and she was doing El Camino barefoot and in silence. So she had a car. She inspired me a little also to do this. But I was even more inspired by the book The World Walker by John Francis.
Not read it. Wow.
It's amazing. He spent 17 years in silence, voluntary. He only talked on his birthday for 17 years. And every year he evaluated if he should try to do another year or not. And 16 times he decided that yes, I'm still doing that exercise.
Holy cow.
But then at some point he realized, no, I'm done. I can get back to talking as usual. An amazing book. I think it's called World Walker or Planet Walker. Planet Walker. Yeah, it's a great book. So I met this girl, and she had a card, and she was in silence.
Really?
And then I was there. I was sitting next to her under a shade. We had our feet on a stream.
Yeah.
So we were cooling our feet and sitting under a shade, and we could tell an entire story just with a smile.
Really?
Because we understood exactly what I understood what she was doing.
Yep.
Because I did that before.
All right.
You know, and she did this. She said,
"Wow."
See what I said?
Wow.
What I just said? You. So she asked if I did it before, right?
Yeah.
And then I said, yeah.
Wow.
So I don't even know sign language, and later when I decided to learn a little bit of sign language, I realized that anybody that knows sign language would have understood this. What I just did. It's amazing how sign language is intuitive.
Wow.
You know, amazing. So we were actually having some very simple occasional exchanges, but most of it we were just enjoying being there.
Wow.
And so I spent some half an hour there with her, and then I was looking at her feet. It was pretty clear that she would take a lot longer than I did. But so I knew I was not going to see her again.
Oh.
You know, so at the end I gave her a hug, and I told her using words, you know, love you for what you're doing. It's very inspiring, very interesting. And then I never saw her again.
Whoa.
So if I was to do another thing like that, either Appalachian Trail or El Camino or PCT, anything like that, I would probably do that while walking, quiet, and then socialize and be talkative when you are in the village and on the next hostel. And then you want to make friends, and you know, then I feel like talking. And also, if you're doing that with a friend and you're not talking during the day, by the end of the day you have stories.
That's
you
true.
have stories to tell.
That's true.
That will be exciting. So I suggest that people do it that way. You know, do it, you know, silence and alternating between silence and talking.
Wow. Being silent, sure.
Yeah. Of everybody that you met along the way, who was the most, like, the character that, if you had to pick just one, who would be the most different? Not just people walking or running, but also people that you met along the way. Who was the strangest or most interesting character that you remember?
Well, I have to say, individually, I don't know if there were any strange to me, because they were all so unique. Again, at a very young age, everything was very new. Mm-hmm. when I was in Denver, I was doing a lot of publicity running. So, you know, I the most unique, I did run for spina bifida research, and I will say this. I didn't really know what spina bifida was back then. Spina bifida is an open spine in which people are either paraplegics or quadriplegics. And back when I ran across the country, the average age of somebody with spina bifida was 16, their average life expectancy. And I did not really meet anybody afflicted with spina bifida until I got to Denver and learned that's who I raised money for, but I learned who I was raising money for and what I was raising money for. So I have to say, if I were to pick some kind of a personality out of all the people I met, I would have to say the most courageous people I met were those young kids afflicted with spina bifida and their struggles in life, and the fact and some of them are still alive today.
Whoa.
But back then, people didn't understand what it was. And as a matter of fact, part of my book, the very ending of the book, talks about the fact that in that day and age, it was the second leading birth defect in the world, and nobody knew what it was. Laboratories had no money for spina bifida research. And so I don't know if there was actually any hope at that point in time. So I would say if I could pick a personality type out of all the people I met, I would be the courage of these kids with spina bifida trying to lead a normal life, even though they were not blessed with the appendages to be able to do so. And the run that I did to raise money for them was basically said to be, I was running so others could. Mm-hmm. But until I started meeting them in Denver and then a few times beyond that, I didn't understand that and their parents, because you now have a child who has something major wrong with them that nobody knows mm-hmm. really how to fix.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say personalities, I don't know if that's unique or not, but to me it was the courage. And when the crap hit the fan at the end of my run, because I was told in Ohio to stop running because they didn't know if I would actually ever walk straight again by the time I finished, because my body was totally falling apart. But without having met them, I never would have finished. At the very end, I was, and this is in the chapter, but I had sent my tent home, and I thought I'd be stopping in hotels along the way, a little bit more off motels from Ohio back home, and I was in such pain. I would just take my rain parka and roll up in it in a field somewhere and sleep overnight that way. And all I could do was picture those kids again. So I knew they were counting on me. So if there's a personality that stuck out of something, it was courageous, and it'd be the children that I met and their parents. Yeah. That might not be the direction you were saying, but
that is a very dangerous thing, because when we are so crushed by the experience of meeting people with lives that are so different than ours, we may get into a self-destructive drive to do something about it. You see a lot of people ruining their lives because of it.
Yep.
You know, you get it's a bad version of motivation, where you get motivated to a point that it becomes self-destructive. You see it happens to certain things, and sometimes we brush with that ourselves. Oh, yeah. And maybe that's the case, with you. I think I was too cynical and too detached from anything to get into that. But I can imagine getting into that state of mind in which you really want to do something so hard, so you want it so much.
And for me, the change was when I first found out National Council of Corvette Clubs were raising money for spina bifida research. I didn't even know what it was. So all across the country, up until Denver, halfway across the country, I didn't know what it was. I don't know what these people were. But had they not come into my life at the point they did, mm-hmm. I probably would have accepted the doctor's opinion in Ohio and stopped. So it might have been a self-destructive mindset, but at that point there was just no stopping. Just wasn't in me. Never has been.
Yeah. That is so crushing to see someone being in a life that is so different than yours. It's so alien to us, right? It's so completely alien.
And
I don't know. I don't even know what I would feel about it. It's too alien. It's too alien even to think about it. It's like, I know people that survived cancer. Some of them survived cancer several times.
yeah,
And I feel it keeps going over my mind. I cannot even imagine being in that situation.
I agree.
That where suddenly you are given the full-time job of not dying. It's so weird. Like I had brushes with death in my life, but they were quick. Because of accident or combat or things like that.
Yep.
That it's over, in a minute.
Yep.
So it happens, and then next day, you have the psychological impact, but at least you have that relief of knowing that, okay, I'm not in that anymore.
And these people realize that their journey in life is just struggling to stay in life. That the biggest reward to raising money for them was not only helping them, but now I ran in 1978, and this is the total end of the tail end, the last chapter or paragraph or two of my chapter. I ran in 78, and somewhere around the year 2002, I was at a restaurant, and some friends of mine had a woman that wanted to meet me. So we're talking 24 years later, and not for anything physical but she said she wanted to meet me because now I live in Western Massachusetts, and she said, I wanted to meet you because I remember your run from back in 78. She knew specifically the date, the time, and what was going on. She said, I worked in a laboratory in a hospital in the Springfield, Massachusetts area, which is just short distance from me. And she said, when you ran across the country, the whole hospital was watching your run. We're talking 1978 through Associated Press, any newspaper articles that came out in my area. Because I was calling back via telephone booths and some kind of call, a collect phone call where the people had to accept the charges. And I said, well, why was everybody watching? She said, Al, when you ran across the country, she said, spina bifida was the second leading birth defect in the world. I said, I knew this. She said, but I worked in a laboratory, but we had no money for research. There was no money coming in for spina bifida research because nobody knew what the hell it was. And she said, the attention that your run drew to the world, or from the world to the plight of these children, she said, they started receiving money from everywhere for the next 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
To the point that, and this is why she wanted to meet me, still trying to hold it together here, Milton, but
keep doing it.
To the point that she said, Al, I was in the lab that developed the very first spina bifida early pregnancy tests.
Ooh.
And she said, you changed medical history. And I looked at her, I said, listen, I'm not that glory seeking or whatever you would call it, I said, listen, this is a big effort from like hundreds and hundreds of people. And she said, no, you don't get this. I was there. Without your run across the country to being a rolling podium for the world and for these people to tell the world of their plight and show them children afflicted with it, she said they could not have been as effective. And I said, no, it was everybody. And Milton, at the end, she grabbed me by the hands, kissed me on the cheek, and said, you have to understand that you changed medical history.
That's so
And
cool.
we were both crying at that time. But hang on. I can still picture it. But it really hit home when my daughter was pregnant with her second child. Michelle is my daughter. She was pregnant with her second child. She knew I'd run across the country. She knew what I raised money for. But there was a piece that I didn't tell her till one day I called her up and we were talking over the phone. She lives in Maine. I says, what are you doing today? She goes, I'm headed to the doctors for some tests, being pregnant. There are different tests they do. I said, what are you going for now? She said, it's the early pregnancy spina bifida test. And until that point, she didn't realize how much effect the run across the country, even though she knew it was her spina bifida, what the run across the country that I had done had led to. And I'm not taking credit for it. I'm just saying that is where seeing those children and suffering physically the last stretch of my run, 24 years later, it showed me that it was worth it. Not often enough I hold it together as much as I just did, Milton, because I can still picture it every time.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there is any better way to finish this podcast than with this story. Thank you so much.
Well,
thank you so much for sharing it.
I've enjoyed every minute of talking with you along this thing. This has been the most I've talked individually with anybody in our group. You okay? Don't you cry on me.
Thank you so much, man. This was great. And
Milton, what you're doing,
not the last one.
Well, what you're doing is great, and you're helping show the world what we all have done. And again, none of us has ever sought glory for this. None of us did it. We all did it kind of our own gig. And so this book coming out is finally not only bringing maybe a little bit of awareness to the world about us, but also some of the things that they can do themselves to help the world with some events that they can personally do as their own dream. Put your dream together and go help someone.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right, my brother.
All right, man.
Be well.
We hope you like this podcast as much as we like to produce it. This has been made possible by the efforts of dozens of volunteers, supporters, partners, and visionaries that are helping us build Forager's World. Please visit our website,